Forensic evidence. I'm talking about physical forensic evaluation of evidence found at a crime scene. We can all agree, I believe we can all agree on one thing. The Maddie and Kaylee were killed in Maddie's bedroom on the 3rd floor. That's pretty widely accepted. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Bill Thompson says it.
Bill Thompson may say it, but we can agree she was killed there, but attacked there initially, no, we have to disagree.
The killer encountered Xana at the bottom of the stairs and attacked her all the way to her room where she was found murdered on the floor.
And this is where the disagreement begins and the debate starts, because these facts and getting them correct will lead us to targets and other information.
According to professionals in the field, for crime scene recreation to be an accurate representation of what actually happened, all evidence must be thoroughly analyzed and accounted for. Once complete, other evidence available, such as witness statements, can be compared for accuracy. Once everything has an explanation, then and only then can the truth be known.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Let's start this first with where we are in agreement on the crime scene.
But you look at it and say, is it plausible in any way that you could have that quantity of bloodletting during the commission of the crime from the kitchen, basically from the kitchen down through the beer pong table, turning left down that hallway, a significant distance, let's say approximately 30 feet. And every single stain, or the vast majority of the stains, somehow was diluted with saliva where she never really, we don't know that she suffered those injuries until she got in her room. She didn't go back out of the room. She never left the room. And Paulette Sutton's report says that as well.
We both agree on point number one, that there are 3 crime scenes in this house. Maddie's room, Xana's room, and the living room being crime scene number 3. And we both agree that crime scenes 1 and 2, the 2 bedrooms, and the blood evidence in those rooms look completely different than the blood evidence in the living room, meaning all of the blood in the living room on the walls and on the pong table seem to be diluted with an unknown substance, where the blood in the bedrooms don't seem to be diluted with the same substance. Although there is some blood that was detailed to either be diluted with likely mucus, and some samples in the bedrooms that were diluted during the actual extraction of evidence. It seems to be a different story in the living room area, but a crime scene in the living room area is very apparent. That part we can agree upon. It's the next part where we have a slight disagreement, but we're still in agreement on the scenario.
The killer encountered Xana at the bottom of the stairs and attacked her all the way to her room where she was found murdered on the floor.
Now let's just take what Mr. Whitcomb just said. He said that Xana was attacked all the way from the bottom of the stairs to her bedroom. And let's look at the physical evidence around that, and let's do one thing. Let's just take Xana out of it. And let's just say an unknown individual was attacked from the bottom of the stairs all the way to Xana's bedroom, because I do agree with it up until a certain extent when we look at the physical evidence. And let's look at that evidence. Now, we can easily determine that somebody was attacked at the bottom of the stairs, likely in this area right here, this being Dylan's room, coming out of the kitchen right before you go up the step into the living room. It certainly appears somebody was attacked here because of the blood spatter or cast off that ended up on the pong table right in front of that spot. And when we're looking at it from this angle, that would be approximately right here. And we can see the position of the pong table in this picture. It may be off just a little bit because they moved it several times. But when we look at the direction of the spatter on the pong table, we can see that it's coming from this direction onto the pong table. So I would agree with what Mr. Whitcomb said right there, that somebody was attacked right here. I would disagree in the Xana part though, because the blood on the pong table from this attack came back 100% Kaylee Gonzalez with zero cross-contamination of Maddie, which I believe is a very important part to this. And when we look at the orientation of the pong table, and we can see based on this big stain right here that it's coming from this direction, and this stain on the side that's hard to see right here, but it's coming from this direction as well. So somebody was attacked back here, it certainly seems. And when we look at a closer view of the pong table and we see this stain in the clear direction of travel that it was traveling when it hit the pong table, and then we see all of the diluted blood, but we also see some other stains, and we see a lot of what appears to be spatter all over this pong table, indicating somebody was definitely injured in this area. So I would agree. Somebody was attacked here. Now, one thing that I've heard Mr. Whitcomb discuss was he was thinking maybe the pong table was knocked over during this position of the attack, and somebody set it back up with the cups. Now, I know that me and my viewers have gone through and we've come to the determination that these cups are actually glued down, based on the fact that anytime this table is moved, these cups never move. And people say, well, that would defeat the point of beer pong. Not exactly, because you see these other cups here that are knocked over. If these were glued down and you beer ponged your ball into these cups, all it would do is tell you to drink. So your drinks would be in these cups and you would drink out of these, and that way you were never having to drink out of the cup that your beer pong ball went into. But that is my likely scenario, that these cups are actually glued down. So I don't believe this table was knocked over, although it is quite possible. However, it's the next set of evidence that I think is interesting. So I've heard Mr. Whitcomb talk about doing actual tests, trying to stand here and sling blood all over this half wall from this position, and he says that it was impossible.
There's blood all over the vertical surfaces and on many of the horizontal surfaces in that part of the house. One thing that I think is the cornerstone of problems with this case, you're looking at it. You're looking at the center of that living room with the beer pong table. Reenactments, and I've done studies, and I've done trajectory studies, and I've done the math, and I've studied it in great detail. There's no way to make sense of the stain, in my opinion, and this is an opinion. In my opinion, looking at Paulette Sutton's report, Dr. Turvey's analysis, the crime scene photos, everything that we know about the case, there is no way to put those stains on that knee wall if that table is where it is right now.
So again, this is where we disagree, and I think the forensic evidence is going to agree with me on this. We both agree somebody was attacked right here at the bottom of the stairs. We see that with the blood on the pong table. I say, because of the 100% DNA results to Kaylee being that blood, it was Kaylee that was attacked there, but we'll hold off on that for now. Again, we've got the trajectory of the blood from the position there in front of the pong table. Now, I believe that the evidence will show, and I know your point there was a good point, that there's no way that if somebody is being attacked right here, that the blood could get past the pong table onto the half wall because of the angle of the pong table from this direction to the half wall. But just like you said, it's easy to do the math and look at the crime scene samples and determine the truth in the matter. And the truth in the matter is, once the person is attacked here, the person is then attacked a second time over in this position, which lines up with all of the evidence. When you look at the half wall and you see all of the blood that's scattered along the half wall that was dripping, a closer look to the blood shows that it was not a direct hit. You can see the tails of the initial impact of the blood, and all of the tails are coming from right to left in a very distinct diagonal position. Even the drips are going from right to left. You can see the tail here clearly. You can see the tail right here as well. So if all of this blood that's scattering across the half wall is coming from right to left, then the angle of being here trying to determine how the blood hit the half wall from here and the pong table being in the way is immaterial, because all of these samples of blood or all of these stains of blood that's dripping down the half wall all come from right to left, which means somebody was in this position as they were either attacked or they were slinging the blood that ended up all across the half wall. And that's not all. When, again, you look at this blood on the half wall, you can clearly see the direction. It's all coming right to left. When you look at the other blood that was cast off onto the staircase, two samples in particular, one being right here, and you can even see in this extended picture the direction that it was coming from right to left as the blood hit the wall. And the other stain right here that does the same thing you don't see quite as well, but let's focus on this one. You can clearly see the angle is coming from right to left. This one, it's coming very sharply from right to left. And where you really start to pay attention to the blood is when they test the blood on this wall. It is a mixture of Kaylee and Maddie, but it's not the mixture, it's the percentage of mixture of all of these samples. It's all roughly 90-10 Kaylee Maddie. And that is important to note. And then also, when you're right here and you're looking at the trajectory on the blood that ended up on the top north of the half wall, or the top north of the staircase wall, right here, it doesn't have near as sharp of an angle. As you can see, it's coming just a little bit from left to right and from above. And considering the placement of this on the wall, and once again, this is a 90-10 sample, very consistent with the sample on the other wall. And you look at this area right here that it's coming from, the trajectory from right here is almost exactly perfect to where the angle of that sample hitting the wall is, just a little bit from left to right, coming from an upward angle. And then you've got one more distinct sample next to the bar cart, again, originating from this position. And you can see where the bar cart is in relation to the beer pong table. And these samples of blood that hit the wall and dripped down seem to be coming directly from this angle. And when you look at it closer, you can see that it's too faint to be able to see the direction it's coming from, but it did drip. And then when you look closer, though, you can see there's more blood drips over here behind this bar cart, all coming from left to right and hitting the wall.
In a crime scene like this, you're going to have blood. When you have that blood, oftentimes because of the mechanism of the injury, of the infliction of the injury, it spreads the blood around. That's obvious. We know there was a knife involved. We know there's a blunt force trauma. All of that spread blood in patterns that you can analyze. There's blood on the walls, there's blood on the ceilings. And because of the distance of that blood transfer as spatter, you can calculate the force it would take to do that.
So I think it's pretty clear when you look at this entire scenario, you've got two areas that were areas of attack. The first area being right here, and the blood hitting the pong table coming back to 100% Kaylee tells me that this is the area of attack number one. I believe this is an area where Kaylee was attacked with blunt force. Then she made her way over here to area number two, where I believe Kaylee was attacked with a knife with Maddie's blood already on it. And I think the DNA results from samples taken here on the half wall, here on the other side of the wall, and right here on the north upper end of the wall, it's not just that it's Kaylee and Maddie's blood, and it's not just that it's 90-10 Kaylee and Maddie's blood on all of these. It's the fact that it's 90% Kaylee's blood with only 10% Maddie's blood. So with a clear indication that somebody was attacked right here because of the cast off that landed here, all across the half wall, on the north wall of the staircase between the first and second floor, on the north wall over here, on the north wall over here. Because it's a 90-10 mixture, and it's the only place we find in the entire house where the mixture is so highly concentrated, Kaylee, with Maddie's blood, it tells me that she was attacked likely with a knife that was already contaminated with a little bit of Maddie's blood. And when Kaylee was attacked, just a little mixture of 10% of Kaylee's blood mixed in with, Maddie's blood mixed in with that attack is why you see the mixtures over here, but you don't see the mixtures on the pong table. So you have two areas of attack, both on Kaylee Gonzalez. And there is no evidence of any of Xana's blood outside of the threshold of Xana's door. And we've already looked at the evidence in detail inside Xana's room on when she opened the door and she was attacked. So then I have to go back to this.
Somebody came down and took the food and took it to the kitchen because we got a photograph of the bag that says Xana with the food in it in the kitchen, right? We know that. So somebody picked up the food and I think some of it ended up in her bedroom because she had it in her hand when she was running away, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I want you to listen to that one more time and listen real close. I do agree with him that there's the DoorDash bag in the kitchen. At some point, somebody brought it to the kitchen and Xana must have made a plate, took it to her bedroom. But listen to what Whitcomb says close.
Somebody came down and took the food and took it to the kitchen because we got a photograph of the bag that says Xana with the food in it in the kitchen, right? We know that. So somebody picked up the food and I think some of it ended up in her bedroom because she had it in her hand when she was running away, I'm pretty sure. She had it in her hand when she was running away, I'm pretty sure. She had it in her hand when she was running away, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, now this is where the lack of evidence and the obvious go head to head and converge. We have already both agreed that somebody was attacked at the bottom of the stairs between here and the pong table.
During the commission of the crime from the kitchen, basically from the kitchen down through the beer pong table, turning left down that hallway, a significant distance, let's say approximately 30 feet.
And then the assertion of Mr. Whitcomb, probably Mr. Turvey, and the prosecution expert, Paulette Sutton, is that it was Xana, and then she was being attacked from that position all the way into her bedroom.
A significant distance, let's say approximately 30 feet.
However, we've already gone through the physical evidence that doesn't match that, but now add the scenario of Xana having a plate of food in her hand as she begins to be attacked right here, and somehow she's able to carry that plate of food as she's being attacked all the way to her bedroom, and not one piece of evidence of food on that plate is found anywhere in this area, not to mention she's able to carry a plate all the way to her room while she's being attacked. There's where the Xana scenario completely falls apart. And while there is zero evidence of any of that food being outside of Xana's room, there is nothing but evidence of that food being just inside the door of Xana's room. As you see the plate of food on the floor here next to the open door. Here's another example of the plate of food being right here, right where you would expect it to be if she opened the door and was attacked and dropped the food. And then there's the plate here. There's the fries over here. There's the cup that held the fries over here. Here's a packet of sauce over here. Here's all this food mixed in with the other bad stuff here. More fries here and here. And then there's all of the fries here, here, over actually underneath where they found Xana. She was laying on top of a fry here. And here's another fry right here. So there's nothing but evidence that she had that plate of food in the room when she was attacked. And then the most compelling evidence being not just the plate of food found near the door where she opened it and she was attacked, certainly not running from the kitchen with it, but the fries over here knocked all the way to the closet door, right where you see the most convincing evidence in the case on where Xana was first attacked, which is the light switch directly above where those fries were, with the directional spatter showing you the area of convergence right inside the door as she opened it. You see, when you really put the forensic evidence together, it paints the true picture, and then you can truly know the truth. But then we have to account for the obvious, and that is what everybody misses. They took Kaylee back up to the bedroom and finished the attack. And is there any evidence to that? I ask you. And I say, yes, there is. And what would we expect? If Kaylee was attacked right here first at the pong table with blunt force, we would expect to find blunt force injuries that are different than all the other victims in the case.
Blunt force trauma to the head, which according to prosecution was beyond what you could inflict with your hands. Nobody beat her with their hands. They beat her with an object which has never been identified or discovered. They took it out of the house when they left. The police reports, autopsy reports say Kaylee Goncalves, her skull injuries, her hard tissue, her bones in her face, her teeth, that was caused by a blunt object which has never been discussed. Nobody's talked about it. They talk about the knife sheath because they found a K-bar because they found the sheath, but not that instrument. But it was not found in the house. Okay, that's
next. We would expect to see signs of a sharp object creating damage on Kaylee.
Injury number 3 was edged weapons wounds. They're penetrative wounds or slash wounds.
And then finally, we would expect to see signs that she was brought back upstairs, likely in a way that inflicted injuries on her that would not have been inflicted on her while she was in the bed, such as somebody grabbing her by the neck and dragging her upstairs and choking her the whole way up.
Kelly Goncalves suffered a constriction injury that produced a condition called petechia in her lips, which is, you can Google it, right? It's little dots in her lips, which is burst blood vessels, which is a specific mechanism, which is occlusion of blood, pressure builds up, and it bursts the blood vessels. Mm-hmm. It was created by somebody either choking her, and I say choking, people will say, well, there's no ligature marks, and I would say, well, you can't tell, or she was suffocated somehow. But somebody went hands-on and strangled or somehow tried to smother her, something to that effect. That was one mechanism of injury.
And although in the past I've gone through many times showing all the evidence of Kaylee being placed in the bed and then being attacked, let's just add one more to the mix, shall we?
Do they both have no socks on?
Kaylee kind of had one sock on and one off.
One sock, that's what I thought.
On part of her foot, not both socks on.
Mm-hmm. And then did Maddie have hers?
No.
So what would you expect to see if Kaylee was attacked downstairs and brought back upstairs and put in the bed with Maddie? You would expect her to have one sock on and one sock off.
Kaylee kind of had one sock on and one off.
One sock, that's what I thought.
On part of her foot, not both socks on.
And that's what Mr. Whitcomb says is true. You know Kaylee's not going to go to bed and go to sleep with one sock on. Come on. If you're going to bed and going to sleep, you don't have any socks on, or you got them both on like Maddie.
Mm-hmm. And then did Maddie have hers?
No.
Once complete, other evidence available such as witness statements can be compared for accuracy.
I didn't write a book about opinions. I interviewed no one because I don't really care for the scope of this book, what somebody thought about this 3 years after fact. I want to look at primary source documents about what they said at the time. This
is an exact quote from Christopher Whitcomb's book in chapter 1. These are our first witness statements about the crimes. Dylan's exact words matter. They are quoted directly from the police report. Dylan says, all I heard her go upstairs and go, okay, I'm going to go to sleep right now because she's going upstairs. Heard who go upstairs, says Nunez. Kaylee and the dog Murphy. And upstairs to the very top. Yeah, that's where her room is. Okay. And then also, I heard her walking up, I heard her scream, and she ran downstairs because she saw someone. And that's when I'm pretty sure she said, "Someone's here." And she screamed and just ran downstairs. And I called her name, but I jumped up and locked my door because I was so scared. Then I heard someone in the bathroom. I heard her crying, and I heard some guy say that, "You're going to be okay. I'm going to help you," which matches the crime scene evidence to a T.
Once everything has an explanation, then and only then can the truth be known.
You see, I know from experience that one misinterpretation of the crime scene, such as Xana being attacked in the common area instead of Kaylee, and all of the discrepancies in the wounds on Kaylee because of that situation, would take experienced FBI and crime scene recreationists and criminal psychologists, and they would lead to the wrong conclusion, like Kaylee Gonzalez was the target due to her wounds, versus Kaylee Gonzalez's wounds happened because of what happened in the common area. And then you have to deal with the fact that the assailants went all the way to Xana and Ethan's room after attacking Kaylee and Maddie, and it was completely different assailants. And it proves that Xana and Ethan were also a target. Really just Xana. Ethan was there to protect her, I'm sure. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Till next time, Pavarotti's out.